Okay, so onto the IC.
Yeah.
And the galactic anti-center being conjunct the IC. I have here, it seems like there is so much energy at the GC that eventually it kind of shocks the IC. And the IC is like the core of one's being, the roots of the chart. I have to wonder, or I have questions about how naturally aware of the core of your own being you are all of the time. I have in parentheses, I don't mean that in a shitty way, just to be clear. I don't mean that in that, but I just mean like the galactic anti-center does seem to be a place that is kind of blinded or covered with space dust in the chart, which is why I ask the question that way. I might also wonder about your family, and if there was too much flexibility, changeability, or something like that, something along those lines, that made it harder for you to totally nail down the core of your being.
Yeah.
All of the time. And because you have Mercury, the ruler of your Gemini IC in Capricorn, it does feel like that would be that would be bothersome to you, or that could have been, and that perhaps you may have looked for, you may have sought notions of family and home elsewhere.
Yeah.
But I think that when the GC, because there is like an energy overflow, and then I think what happens is it shoots over to the IC, it shot, or in your case, the IC and the galactic center, and shocks it away. And it's like, it gives it an opportunity to see what needs to be seen.
Yeah.
Do you feel like any of that?
Yeah. So if I just talk a little bit about my kind of home life growing up. So I don't know how old, like when, it definitely, like, it's all my home life, like my roots, whatever, it's always felt kind of unstable.
Okay.
So, you know, from when I was little, I had the perfect family, and then during the recession, I don't know how old I was, like 7 or 8, like my family lost all their money and we had to sell the house, family house, and that was so disturbing. I remember my parents being really weird, like their energies and things, and then my parents split up, and then my mum had, this is when I was a bit older, my mum had like a younger boyfriend, like quite a lot younger, and then I was allowed to do kind of anything I wanted. Like I was allowed to, like I was 14 and I went to a rave, and I was allowed to smoke pot at home and get drunk and all this kind of stuff, and I just had like a lot of freedom as a kind of quite young teenager kind of thing, and so I definitely felt like quite unstable at home, even though I was very close to my mum. I'm close to my dad now, but not so much then, but it definitely felt quite unstable. And then in terms of finding home somewhere else kind of thing, or connections, so that would definitely be with people. So when I was very young, it was like my cousins and my auntie, it was like their house was like my kind of like place where I felt at home, I suppose, and rooted. And then like friends when I got older, and then when I was 16 I met my husband, and he has definitely been my kind of root, I suppose. Like since then, we've been together ever since then. So is that what you kind of meant?
Yeah. And that make, you know, that kind of that makes, you know, okay, so you've got your you have your, you know, you got your IC and Gemini, but then throughout the most of the 4th house has Cancer in it, right? So that does kind of speak to like where you started is different than where you kind of go, and I don't mean end up, but like how you create a family yourself, to me. Like, you know, it's different than what you started with. In a, I feel like probably a more secure way.
Yes.
Or striving for this. I mean, Cancer energy wants security. It wants to nurture. It wants to be nurtured. Whereas Gemini energy is a little bit more changeable, a little bit more flexible, a little more unstable. Comparatively. But that is, do you feel like there were times that like things, see, this is the part that I can't quite nail down.
Yeah.
If it could be a transit thing, it could be a progression thing, it could be a synastry thing when you meet people and their charts line up with yours, right? In a certain way, or it could just be a random thing. I'm not really sure, but I do think that it has to do. Were there ever times that you feel like the core of you was shocked, like just like lit up? And would you say there were any common threads as to when this happened?
This is just like a one. This is a big thing that happened to me, is that when in 2011, so like our house got burnt down and everything, like in the riots in London, and just like losing everything and losing our home, and just having that was like a huge shock and a huge
I'm so sorry.
On the Lionsgate as well, which was
that is
yeah. And
I'm so sorry about that though. That's
yeah. And that was definitely like a shock. Is that kind of what you meant? Like that was
yeah, it certainly could come up. Yes, it certainly could come about like in like a massive, like a major event. Yes, absolutely. It could come about like that. Yeah, I think that's probably a good example of that, especially since we're talking about the IC, which is also, like home. And I think that follows her.
Yeah, I'm not sure about, sorry, go on.
I was gonna say, did it kind of cause you to see things about yourself, about in a different kind, you know what I mean? Like kind of wake you up to perhaps things that
it like so after that happened, I left the band that I was in. I'd been working as a corporate receptionist while being in the band, and I dyed my hair bright pink. Like I went and got a big tattoo on my arm so that I could never do a job like that again. And then like a week later, I wrote a song about it and I performed that. Like I ended up like performing on the steps of St. Paul's Cathedral during the anti-capitalist protests where people were sleeping out, and definitely like it changed my whole focus and perspective. And like I lent on my family a lot more, my friends. Like I let them really like nurture me and give to me and really care for me, and it was a really difficult time, but it was also a really like amazing experience, but really hard. But yeah, and that was definitely one of the big life-changing things that's happened.
Yeah, I would think that would definitely qualify here for what I'm talking about. Okay, so the last question that I have, and I'll be like I was telling you, I haven't really, I mean, I certainly am aware of the Shapley Attractor. I have done a little, but my research I've looked into the Great Attractor more, but the Shapley Attractor is actually bigger than the Great Attractor. And this is at 2 degrees Scorpio. So it's right next to your Saturn and your Pluto.
Right.
It's right there. And it's in the 7th house. Okay, so I have here the pull of these two planets conjunct one another, and also conjunct something that does so much pulling, which the Shapley Attractor does do that. It like pulls things to it. Makes me think. I think to myself, with great power comes great responsibility. There is like something about, and I mean, like you have Saturn and Pluto conjunct already, so that is already kind of there. But with Shapley there with it, it feels like it's even more so. It makes me think that you can pull a lot of responsibility into your life, specifically in close relationships. But it's probably important that you aren't pulling in the kind of responsibility that causes you to feel responsible for relationships that you shouldn't feel responsible for. Mm-hmm. Have you ever does any of that
yeah, it's really made me think, this question actually. And I feel like it's normally in kind of working relationships that this has happened. So I've had like I've definitely had jobs where I've been like a lot lower down, and then all of a sudden I'm responsible for the whole company and I'm doing so many things. And then, or I've had a job where then the manager's just, you know, asking for too much from me, like as a relationship, not in like a weird way, but just in like telling me all their problems or leaning on me too much. And then I've had like some really intense friendships before, and then it's just been like too much, where they just want so much from you kind of thing. And then I've just had to like basically cut off the relationship, because I'm like, it's like a really intense kind of situation. And I definitely feel like now, whenever I'm quite guarded when I go into friendships or things, because I had that experience before, and I'm quite scared of it. I suppose.
It could totally be not necessarily like romantic relationships, but totally could be friendships, totally could be working partnerships, working relations. Yeah, absolutely. Because seventh house is one of those houses where people tend to think of it just as romantic relationships, but it could totally be other kinds of close one-on-one.
Because I've been with my husband since I was 16, so, and he's not like that at all. He's gives me lots of freedom, which I need, and with like that, our relationship is not like that at all. But it's kind of like maybe like new relationships come in, and people don't get me, or they want too much from me, or I don't. Yeah, there's definitely something there.
Or they think that you can handle whatever it is.
Yeah.
And it's like you kind of are able. I can kind of see how that would play out. Like you just kind of perhaps give off this vibe that you can handle this.
Yeah.
And if they're the sort of person that's like, well, okay, then she can handle that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then they're like, and then I'm like,
which is not what you want. Yeah.
No. And then I've also had, the other thing I was going to say about this, like being in like a couple of bands with people, for example, and then they just think that we're going to like get famous and rich like overnight, and then I don't know, it's like they project onto me this thing that it's, you know, success, I don't know, and then I'm more of a realist. I'm like, well, no, it takes like
time,
hard work, time, exactly. And effort, and it's got, and luck and everything, like, and you know, just, and then so that's been tricky a couple of times, I feel. So
kind of having to set people straight in that way, like, well, hold up, hold up, like, you know.
Hold on, I never, you know, that's not gonna happen.
I could see how I could totally see how that could come out too, something like that. I do want to say though that with Saturn right there is like a whole lot of mastery that can be pulled into, and that could be another reason why people kind of look to you in that kind of that could be that could be some of it. It just kind of has to, and I'd have to think about that for a minute, exactly how to do that, how to rework that, but because it really is a gift, like that could be something that can be very beneficial to you. But it just has to be somehow like tweaked just a little bit, so it's not like people are looking to you for that, and it more just benefits you. You know what I mean?
Because I definitely feel that energy in me so far has just ended up in me taking on more responsibility than I need to, or than I should do, or than I'm being paid for. Like there's a lot of that in my life that's happened, like not being paid for the amount of responsibility that I've taken on, and that kind of thing. So I think you're absolutely right. Like it probably is a strength that people can see that in me, but I'm not managing. I haven't worked out how to manage that yet.
And how to make it work.
How to make it work for me.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And I think it can. I would have to sit with that, but I know it can.
That's
I know it. But there is something there though. There is for sure. That can be I think a pretty big benefit for you. Yeah.
Ooh. That's good.
Well, that is all of the questions that I have. Is there anything that you would like to add, or if not, that's fine?
I don't think so. I just wanted to maybe say something about my kind of I feel like the link to the Galactic Center has made life quite kind of difficult in a way, like hard work, like trying to figure out like who I am and what I'm supposed to be doing, because I've always had this thought that I've got a job to do, I've got something that I've got to do, and I've constantly been looking for it. And then I just feel like the spiritual awakening really fits in with it.
Yeah.
And at the same time as the spiritual awakening, I also feel like that's when I became more rooted in as well to my life, and it kind of all happened at the same time. I don't know. So I don't know if you know anything about the Galactic Center and the link to spiritual awakening, or.
Oh well, I think for I mean, I think it could definitely be a link just in general, but I think with somebody that's got like conjunctions to it, especially something like Neptune. I mean, there's gonna be a spiritual. I can't see that there wouldn't be. I appreciate you saying that it's difficult though, because no, I really appreciate that, because it is. I agree with that. It is. It's a very cool thing. It's a very cool. I think the Galactics are very, very cool just in general.
Yeah.
But they're not easy, and I think that is something that I try to keep it more positive, right, when I do this, but I appreciate the realism here, because you're right. It's not easy. There's nothing easy about it, but it is like, it's very cool though, even though, you know what I mean? Even though it's not, it is a cool, but I really do appreciate the I do, because I don't think anybody else has really said that. And I appreciate that.
I know, yeah, but now it's going to get easier that I've got the link with the spirituality, and that I've kind of, and my focus is not from my mind thinking what I should do, like it's come from the meditation and things. So I'm hoping that now life's going to get easier. And
it's like everything is kind of things have kind of clicked in a different way. Yeah. And instead of being led with your mind, it's more like being led with your soul, if you will.
Yeah.
So
that's what I'm hoping for. Moving forward.
I think that's a good way to go. I mean, look, I think it's a good way to go. Well, I guess we'll go ahead and head off, but thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much. It's been amazing to speak to you. I love your work.
Thank you. And I've loved hearing you talk about everything. It's been very fun. Very, very fun.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And to everybody watching it, I will see y'all later.